give all your permission. So we have a really fun guest this morning. I can't wait for you to meet Christine. But before we get started with that, I'm going to take a page out of Chris Suarez's book. And I think Sarissa Lair does this a lot. Just going back to our values, who do we want to shout out on our teams? Who on our teams is exemplifying our values of growth, right? And it's grit, it's results, only leaders, it's wealth building, it is teamwork, it's humility. Think about that and raise your hand. And while you guys think about that, I'll get us started. I want to give a shout out to Jonathan Hand on the Austin team for exemplifying teamwork. He's going on a listing appointment with one of our agents who's not seller certified yet, and he's driving all the way up to Hutto, which will be really cool. So who else in your world has been really, really cool and a really great like culture champion? Who can you think of? I'll give you a second to think about it, and we're not going on until we get some. Jen, yes.
So my shout out would be to Jordan on our team. I tell you, that guy, it just moves me. Every time I ask for anything, he's right there. And the feedback that I get from my clients when he shows, when he meets a vendor, is so overwhelmingly like positive, and how professional he is and how that shows up and represents all of us. It just explodes my whole heart. I just love that we have him and who he is and who he brings us all up to be. So Jordan,
I like that. Who he brings us all up to be. Right on, Jen. Such an awesome shout out. Jordan, wherever you are, high five, bud. High five. Who else? Anybody else that you want to give a shout out to this morning? Take one or two, and then we'll go on to our Texas stats. Oh, I see one in the chat. Michael, can't jump into video because I'm at the eye doctor, but want to shout out Miss Myrna Cruz. Myrna has had her license for about 8 months, you guys, and she is doing an awesome job with growth. And she's actually been asked to be on a new agent panel within the Market Center. Myrna, way to go. That's a really, really big accomplishment. Love seeing you give back and love seeing your grit the last 8 months. Way to go, lady. Okay. Well, if that is all for this morning, while you guys, I know you guys are still jumping on, I want to share my screen with you guys, and I want to share with you guys what you guys have been doing the last 7 months of the year. Well, actually 6 months and 3 weeks, right? Let's jump in. Let's talk about our stats in Texas. You guys, there is 95 agents in Texas right now. There are 95 agents in Texas right now. I'm still waking up too, don't worry. That's a 64% growth pattern since last year, the exact same time. Listings, last year we had about 110. This year we have about 85. Obviously the market has changed, but we are going to take advantage of that. If you notice here, ever since we've been tracking this, like this number, like our gap to get into green has gotten smaller and smaller. So way to go, taking those listings, guys. Buyer reps, we're up 10%. Pending contracts, look at that, up 67%. That's a big one. So everybody that is pending properties, I know you're super busy. Shout out to all of our transaction coordinators out there who are really coordinating more transactions than they ever have before. Check out the pending volume, you guys. For like the 4th week in a row, we're over $100 million in pendings, $103 million pended right now. This is why it's so cool. 145% increase since last year. That means that you guys are not only pending more, but you're pending them for more money. So you have these built-in raises, which is really, really cool, right? Closed units. Last time this year, 417. This time this year, 717, which is 300 more, which is really, really awesome. So that's a 72% increase in closed. Closed volume, you guys have closed 258 million. That's a 97% increase, you guys. And then gross commission income. Check it out for the first time ever. $7 million in gross commission income. That is really, really cool. It means you guys are making more money. It means that expenses are getting paid. We get to reinvest in you guys. and there's a profit margin so we don't get kicked out of place, fun stuff like that. Just kidding. For anybody listening to this, they're not going to kick us out. They like us, right? But here's my favorite number of all: agent income. We have paid out 3.529 million this year in 6 months and 3 weeks. That's 103% increase. So I love talking about how much money you guys are making, which is really, really fun. So congrats, you guys. You're putting in the work and it's showing up. And this morning, speaking of showing up, we have the privilege of listening to Miss Christine Ricci. And Christine, I'm going to make you co-host as well. There we go. And you guys, Christine is really awesome. She is in our Place network, right? She is in an area that is in New York. So she gets to actually serve both New York and Connecticut. And she'll tell us a little bit more about like what she actually does and what she specializes in. But here's what I want you guys to hear. You know how everybody has superpowers, right? Valencia has a superpower. Rachel has a superpower. Joseph has a superpower. Everybody's got a superpower, right? You may or may not know yours yet, but you've got it. Christine Ricci has a superpower. And yesterday when I was talking to some of our partners, like, what is your superpower? She knew hers, you guys. She knew the power of connection and building high rapport was her superpower. And she is going to share her heart with us this morning. And I've just told her, like, girl, go for it. Just tell us if you want to start, Christine, with like kind of like your story, maybe like your like 3-minute pitch of like how you even got into real estate, why you're even here, why you even stayed in it, because you've been in it a while when a lot of people quit, like 96% of people quit in the first 10 years. Just like talk us through who you are and why you're here and why you're so passionate about this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adelina. This is such a privilege and opportunity when I saw her put out there, what's your superpower? I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And I always love sharing because over the years, I didn't know what my superpower was. But every time I met someone and I really connected with them and built high rapport, my OP, who was my team leader, said, you have a superpower. I'm like, what is that? She goes, the power of connecting. You have a way of remembering people. You have a way of when you are in their presence, the words selections that you use, like you really connect with them deeper than a regular person would. You don't overlook, you remember things about them that one wouldn't, and you're very present and you're very aware. So those things were really, I wasn't aware of those things until someone let me know what they saw my superpower was. So that's step one. So connecting is huge, not only in the environment and the industry we're in, but in general, just in our personal, our children, our relationships, our clients. It runs through all of those veins. So to me, communication and connecting go hand in hand. So I've been selling real estate for 26 years. I started when I was 10 and I'm going strong and I won't stop until I keep going. So that's fabulous. So I started in 1997. I had 3 small babies. I had a newborn, a 2.5-year-old and 5-year-old. And I started in the rentals side. So in New York, leasing is very lucrative. We charge 1 month to 12% of the annual rent. So it's a very, very profitable business. I was doing it 3 days a week, very consistent, very consistent. And I would set up my appointments on Tuesday, do my lead gen. Friday, Saturday, I would show. I had very little time, so my calendar was very clear. And then after my tenants, I served them and placed them. They loved the service I provided. They became my buyers. So I have what I call an annuity business. My renters became my database. I did not lead generate, like I didn't think I was anyway, but I delivered such high service that my tenants became my buyers, my landlord became my sellers and my investors. And now I have a large leasing division that we lease over 100 units a year. And those in a year and a half, I saw my whole business transform. So I really built an annuity business that I'm still working with landlords that today I worked with 20 years ago. So a very interesting way of building a business, but it's all relationship based And the only lead generating I really did was for new landlords, similar to how we would a seller. Easier to capture the landlord because we offer them a free marketing service. So they were like, sure. And then once we delivered the service, they became our repeat clients. So that's how I built the entire Ricci team. We're tracking, hopefully this year we'll hit the 100 million. But right now we're at 50 million, and it's a tough market here, just like everywhere else, but New York is very tough in general. It's taking about 90 to 120 days to close one deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You guys, we have it so good with our 20, 30, 40-day closes. Amazing. So it sounds like you've always played the long game, whether you were realizing it or not. I really love that about you, Christine. Well, awesome, guys, man. Okay, we're ready, Christine. Dang.
So, all right. So I'm going to share my screen. That's
Go for
okay
it.
with you. And, during the time of meeting great people in my journey with Keller Williams, building those relationships has been truly the power. And it should be everybody's power, especially with technology today. I think we have the wrong formula. We spend most of our times trying to be behind the scenes when we should spend that 80-20 being in front and allowing technology to do the other work. But that 20, we really should be spending connecting with people, not hiding behind computers. So building high rapport and really building the long game has been how I built my entire business. My repeat business is about 90%. So that means when I deliver the service, my connecting skills, my ability to build high rapport and trust is over the top. So some things you could focus on. So during my career, I was very conscientious about communication. When I got divorced 9 years ago, I knew if I wanted to move my world forward, not only with building my business, because I got divorced in 2012. And so the real estate business was still down, and I was working 7 days a week. I didn't take one day off for 8 years. I worked 17 hours a day. I was a single mom. My mom helped me tremendously as well with those hours. But I knew that if I wanted to grow a business and also lead me forward into being a remote leader, like a Chris Suarez and a Ben, I had to be a great communicator, and I had to really connect with people in order for them to want to work with me. So some of the things that I focused on that you can really control is your mindset, waking up every day. Like, how are you waking up? Do you have your rituals? Are you true to yourself for self-care? I learned that through the years with therapy and just always putting myself secondary. Even being a team leader, a leader of your team with your clients, you lead your own team with your clients. Waking up and taking care of yourself first is so important. When you're on a plane, they say, put your oxygen mask on first. So that's what something really powerful you can take away is do that always. Your response to the market. Again, Gary Keller says, the market is the market. You can't change it. You have to learn how to adapt in it. So how are you responding to the market, whether it's a seller's market, a buyer's market, it doesn't matter. How are you showing up? And how are you connecting with yourself and the right people to move your business forward, and your team being engaging, your relationships with your clients, and your colleagues and your team members and your team leader. Keep those relationships really dear. I was very, very, very conscientious about hand selecting people into my life. Not everybody gets across, that barrier. I'm always kind to people, but they're not always selected to be a part of my world and my journey. So I'm really conscientious about who I'm in business with personally as well, my friends, who are they, and who my friends are for the life that I'm leading and I'm in. Not everybody is a friend of the moment. So be selective there too. And your conversations, your words are so powerful. How you use those words move you forward. One word that I'll share with you as we move on that changed my entire life from a coach that he really guided me is, I was a single mom, so I had to take my children to soccer and I had to take them to all their activities. I didn't get much help there. So I thought I was being really brave and honest and sharing, hey, Mary, you have a family too. I have to take my son to soccer and then my daughter to dance. Well, they didn't like that. They didn't care I had that in my own life. But he said, Christine, don't say you have an appointment and don't tell them what you're doing. Just tell them one word. I'm so sorry, Mary, I have another commitment. Can we please make it at this time? One word, commitment. Because when you tell someone that you have a commitment, they don't want to disturb that. They know that you have made that conscientious decision to show up for someone. That's a word. If you ever want to use it, don't say I have another appointment. I'm serving another client. I'm so sorry, Adelina, I have another commitment. I will do my best to change that time for you. But if not, just 3 o'clock work. I promise you, it's a game changer. Mindset. So we decide, what we say to ourselves. We're the ones that control that. If we use positive language, even if it's just for you, some words here, it's a hot market versus the market is hard. It is challenging. It is hard to work in real estate, putting in 10, 15 offers per one buyer and not winning it. So that is hardcore for us agents, but it's how do we say it? How do we give ourselves that energy to show up every day? It is a hot market. Yes, it's different, but if you have the right scripts and you have the right education and you're around the right people, you will pull through. Again, do not play the victim, play the victor. And align your thoughts, feelings, behaviors. We heard from our leader, Chris, the other day, and he's like, and a coach that on a call, it's about belief, not feelings. Like you can integrate that together, but be true to your goals, and you're the only one that can control your mindset. Market response versus reaction. Respond to the shifting market. Are we emotionally, are we reactive? Or are we, I always say, I'm a diffuser. I'm always diffusing things. I diffuse my agent's mindset. I diffuse clients that are, you have to talk them off the ledge. I call us, we're always resuscitating our transactions, because we always have to breathe into them with the proper words, how we respond. And are you reacting? Are you being responsive to their feelings? Don't take it personal. Just navigate. Always navigate them through the waters. And connecting with people, even other agents. I teach my agents to connect with the co-op agent. That's the first thing you have to do, because you need information in order to help your clients. And if you can't connect with a co-op agent and show them, him or her, that you're on the same side to have the goal met, you're missing a huge opportunity of, one, seeing if they're potential talent for your team. Secondarily, getting the deal done. Because if you're a win-win agent, they'll always come to you, and they'll even give you inventory before it hits if you really connect with them about the transaction. Building rapport, my favorite. So 3 years ago, I committed to hiring a coach that was a massive master communicator. His name is Michael Burnoff. Through my coaching that I was in, I ended up removing myself from that. And I joined a coaching company that was all CEOs from different industries. I wanted to understand multiple businesses, not just real estate. I wanted to see, how did you build your pet business? How did you build your large ISA business? I wanted to hear from different leaders. So in that coaching company, I met Michael Burnoff, and he is a massive communicator. He's kind of like a Tony Robbins. So I coached with him for 1 year about the power of words and connecting with people, how to be a massive communicator in how you deliver things. Be conscientious about who's on the other side of the phone, of how you're showing up, and how are you going to show up to your text, to your email, to your conversation. And so I really invested in understanding how to be a communicator, because I had to be a great communicator with my children. I had to give them the bad and the good news that, hey, I can't show up, and hey, I can show up, and here's why. But I had to not impose me on them, because they already were in some hardship with the divorce. And I was so committed to making sure they were coming from a broken home that they were not going to be broken moving themselves through their journey. And so that was my commitment to them. And then my team wanting to be a remote leader and travel and teach and be able to still deliver my leadership. You have to be a great communicator. Like Chris said, last year during COVID, no one's ever going to call you and say, hey, you know, you really suck. You over communicated. No one's ever going to say that. So when in doubt, over communicate than under communicate. Validate. There's one book that changed my entire team's life. It's about 90 pages, maybe 100. It's called I Hear You. That book is all about validating. That's how you build rapport. The minute you dismiss someone because you're disinterested, even though you don't need to be interested, there's a way to still validate without being interested. But when you shut someone down, you don't give them the opportunity to be heard. And listening and being heard is very different. So I didn't even know I had this magical skill, but I was always so empathetic, and understanding empathy versus sympathy is in that book. And it really changed even how my agents approach the sellers, approach even their home life. So great book if you want to read something really awesome. It's called I Hear You. And connecting the client was not just connecting on the first initial meeting. It was taking what I heard and I brought that conversation into the entire time I was working with them. I remembered things from our first initial consultation. And when I was at the home, I instilled that. I added that to the conversation. Hey, remember when we were sitting down and you talked about you wanted this kitchen off to see little Johnny play in the background, in the backyard. So they feel heard. And when they feel heard, they build trust. When they build trust, they are a legacy client. They will never leave you. I just closed the client that I sold 8 homes to. They were a client from France. I rented them a home. I got them out of their lease, sold them a home. They renovated it, sold that home. They bought another home, renovated that one. I sold that one. They bought the next one, renovated that one. And during COVID, I said, hey, do you want to make $1 million on your home in 5 years? And I just sold that home and they made $1 million in 5 years. So be transparent, connect what's important to them. You will build relationships so deep that you will be absolutely blown away on the long game. Trust. Again, empathy. Stay focused on their solutions. Be the diffuser. Be the one that points out if something is not accurate. I pointed out that the lower level basement did not have a certificate of occupancy. She didn't know, but I ended up getting her a $10,000 credit for that legalization. So be the person to have the strong conversations. Be the one that converses versus interrogates. I always say, don't interrogate, have a conversation. Don't go through the LP mama just to get to the appointment. Ask questions, go deep, build off what they're saying to you. Always important to reiterate what you've heard. Because that on the initial consultation, initial contact builds trust that brings so much value that, I mean, literally when you sit out even meeting agents at a conference, don't just go through like speed dating, speed agent meeting. It's a waste of time. I did that on my first KW, Keller Williams conference, and I ended up collecting 100 cards and I didn't know anyone. But the next meeting, my coach challenged me to meet 3 people, have a breakfast, a lunch, and 3 set appointments, make 3 appointments of 3 top leaders that I wanted to mirror and be like. And so after I did that, I built relationships for life. I mean, I called at the time, Chris Heller, all the big players. I mean, I'm like, I want to have breakfast with you. And they did. And from there, we built amazing relationships that now we still run very deep. But don't have interrogative conversations. Converse. Interesting. Ask more questions. You hear a dog in the background. Oh, what kind of dog do you have? You hear a baby. Oh, how old is your baby? Don't just go through the motions. It won't work. Taking ownership. This is something that is huge in developing your communication and connecting with people. These are just 3 in our life that we take ownership about doing and executing. But when you're with clients, and you're lead generating, don't build relationships. Don't just dial. Like, it drives me a little crazy when we say, oh, dialing 1,000 dials. I get it. There's a goal that you want to hit. But along that goal of 1,000 dials, decide how many you're going to build or how many calls you're going to make that you're really going to know who that owner is, learn something about them. Bring a story, always have your toolkit of stories always to the table. That builds huge communicate connections is when you tell stories. I always tell my agents, have your toolkit of stories, because your stories, if they are aligned with where that client is, they really understand it and feel the difference. Your lead conversion, understand what that is. Take ownership of how are you connecting with the conversion, because the conversion, be intimate with your numbers. This is all about connecting taking ownership of where you're going in your business, on what you want that to look like. Connect with your colleagues, help them when they need something, your team members, your partners. It's so important to not just connect outwardly to clients, but internally as well. And then again, take ownership of leveraging your technology. Connect with these tools. These are things that that if you want to have a big life, experiential living, and you want to deliver and impact people along your journey of real estate, because we have the opportunity to do that. This is something you should take note of. But your words, what words you use, here's something that I heard, and I don't know if you guys heard it too. Don't ever deliver negative news after 8 p.m. People who normally are exhausted. They're not in a state of mind that they could absorb it, and you're doing a disservice. Wait until you're fresh. You can have a conversation. They're refreshed to receive it better than at 8 o'clock at night when they've had an exhausting day. So I never deliver, you didn't get the deal at 8 o'clock at night, ever. I can give them a ping saying I didn't hear back yet, but delivering that at 8 o'clock at night is not fun at all. And thank you for this amazing opportunity.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I think some of our agents have follow-up questions. I'll start with Erin. Erin had a question of okay, so what are some examples of stories that you would tell? Or, maybe maybe in the agent mindset, versus the team leader, hiring new agents mindset. What are some of those stories? What's an example so some of our people can.
Yeah, I mean, so stories is, so I always start, I'm huge with community, businesses, and things that I love, right? So I love travel, I love restaurants, I love coffee shops. So usually I do my area tours, like restaurant tours. I point out all that stuff, but in the journey, so here's one thing, and I know now during COVID, it's not possible, but here's how we've done it differently. My clients always were in my car. I never took a client out that followed me, ever. And why that was important was because in that car drive, while you're showing them homes, that is where you reveal and unveil who they are. And you get to tell stories of other client experiences you've had that match where they are. Like my story is, if there's a divorcee that's trying to sell their home, I'm very empathetic because I'm that person. I've been through a divorce. I'm a single mom. I could relate. So don't tell a story of something that doesn't relate to the client. You want to keep your stories to your small tidbits. If there's tell a funny story about, oh, we took this client out and, this happened. And, oh, I just worked with a client that had a very similar family makeup as you. And these are the 5 areas that we looked at. So you're just connecting your journey of your past client sales and the current client you're working with and your life story, and you integrate them. But don't tell too much about you because you have to make it about them. But just take one story, something I do that's kind of story-ish is I name all the homes that we see. It's a story. So if I show them a house and it has a red door and I'm showing them 10 houses because I do, we name each house. And I'd say, look, we're going to play a little game. We're going to name all the houses. So I want you to help me find what you identified with the home that then we could tell a story about later. So throughout the day, if you're showing them 10 homes and they don't remember the cat house or the blue door house, they're not interested in the house. You've just eliminated those homes. And now you go back to the ones that are the ones that they remember. So those are little stories of actually how you're showing homes that you get to integrate as you go through every home and say, hey, Erin, the house that the first house we saw, they're like, which one? The one with the red door. Oh yeah. What did you like about that one versus this one? Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that one anymore. You're ready to exit out. So you play a little game, but those are stories along. And then later on, like the next day, you have your regroup and the stories are from the day before. Hey, remember when this happened? Or hey, let's stop here for lunch. Like, so even when I show them home 3 months from now, or a month from now, or 30 days from now, we still remember that first initial, we make it fun. And so those are just stories along the way. I mean, obviously I have a capacity of working with about 30 people at one time. So when you do rentals, it's very fast paced. So I would close like 7 rentals in a week. So 7 times 4, that's 30 people. And I'm still nurturing another 10. So I had a really high capacity of being on that stage and having my at-bats every day. And so that allowed me to really have a wide bandwidth of being in business with a lot of people at one time. But those stories is those along the ways, what the past clients, your children's story, if there's someone that has a little boy that's a baseball player, that maybe it's somebody that's just starting the college journey and you've been through it. So relate your life with them. Like, you don't want to be stone cold and just sell a product. It won't work. So those are some things I
don't
do.
know if you guys noticed, but did you guys pick up that Christine like practices what she preaches? Like, she like physically said Erin's name, and I like literally like said it once, right? So like that's what I mean about connection, because the second Erin heard her name, I see her smiling. There she is, right? Yeah. Like that made it real for her, right? Because we were answering Erin's question. I love that. Like, okay, guys, think about your questions, raise your hand, all of that, because if not, I've got questions. What you gave us a tip, like don't ever deliver bad news after 8 p.m. Like, do you have any other tips that you like are like that come to mind that you find, man, like these things are really important and people kind of don't do them or should do them? Any other tips that you have?
So I just want to go back to Sharon because she posted in there about capturing the client. I would start off by saying, okay, I just want to let you know that I'm going to hold you hostage and I'm not going to feed you until you pick a home. And they would laugh. I'm like, this is the journey that we're going to do this today. And so we would always build in lunch. So we always built in some downtime so their brain doesn't explode. And remember, so I work a lot with expats from all over the world. So they would come in just like somebody relocating in Texas and they have 3 days to find a home. So you have to be on your A game. You have to have everything mapped out, an itinerary, like very specific, like a tour guide. Like where am I picking up the hotel, the times of the consult, when are we stopping for lunch? Like, so that was my days, weeks, all the time. But I would say that as a joke, but it's really true, because once they're in the car, you hold them captive. They're not going to jump out of a moving car. And so in that car, you had a really, really huge opportunity to, one, be uncomfortable with silence if they weren't a talker. And how do you break through? So you had to be engaging. So if they weren't a talker about themselves, I then brought in different highlights of the town we were in, parks and recreation. Once people get to know about, like, you say, hey, so what do you love doing? Tennis, this, swimming. Then you focus your tour on them and those things. You point out the golf clubs if they like golf, things like that. So there's always a way to break through, but that connecting of something, they either have a pet, they love doing something that you love doing, or something you've experienced. Just bring that into the conversation. That's how you connect with them. And then point it out. And then when you take them out again, point it out again. Oh, I did some research for you on some clubs. And then you just bring that in. I tested my agents yesterday on all of the public courses in our area. I tested them on if somebody walked in an open house and you didn't know anything about a town, what can you tell me about it? Like, if you don't know this, you're missing a huge lifestyle connection opportunity. Because when you connect with them lifestyle wise, their children, themselves personally, books that they're reading, you're missing huge connecting tips and tools to move forward and then be engaging with them. So the moving car thing. And so what I've done during COVID is they're following because they can't be in the car with us. And I tell them, I'm going to call you and we're going to have a driving tour. So I call them on their cell phone. And as we're driving through and I'm giving an area tour, I still connected with them and show them all the landmarks, as we were driving through. And then when there wasn't anything interesting in the highway, I say, okay, I'll call you as soon as we get off the exit, because I want to point out where the shopping areas are and where everything is as we're driving. So I would just put them on a call, and I would just let them know I'm going to be calling you, and we're doing an area tour. And that's how I'd still connect with them while we were in separate cars.
That's awesome. Like I think my brain is like a little bit like, whoa, because wow, yeah, area tour while you're like on the phone with them. How about that? Because oftentimes what happens is like we'll get to the house and we'll be like, did you see like when we passed
Right.
up on the right, there was a restaurant there, and they're like, they have no idea. They weren't even looking right. Okay,
Yeah.
I love it.
And
What
that's really, and I'm a huge map queen. I still use paper. I copy all my maps in black and white, and I bring a highlighter with me. And I highlight everything on a black and white map, and they still love it. No matter how much you Google it and how much you do this, the overview of what we're doing is so important. And I literally I pick landmarks and I use highlighters to really, so they understand the area dynamic so they can make a decision. So these are, again, when you're that intimate with someone, the experience, it's kind of like when, and they weren't on that call, but Chris and Ben brought up what it takes to be a taxi driver in London. You need a degree. Like, you need to be a tour guide. They won't hire you if you don't know all the landmarks, because in that taxi, the experience is that you're a tour guide. You're not a chauffeur, you're a tour guide. And if they have that same experience with you, either behind you or in the car with you, it's life-changing.
I love that. It's like, that is, if you've ever like heard any of your team leads say, what's the difference between a transaction and an experience? That right there, just think of that. Like, how do we, like, ask yourself the question, how do you make it an experience versus a transaction for someone? Guys, it'll be so hard for Zillow or another agent or anybody to ever break that kind of relationship. You guys will be the call. That is how you build that legacy business. I love that, Christine.
And it's just being transparent, like the respect level that goes up, and the trust that you see, like literally on my first consult on a Zoom, you could see the screen light up with their eyes when they see that you're an expert. On all of my consults, I have a map of the county, and I have a cheat sheet, train cheat sheet that I created with all the express trains and the times from every stop. And so those two things I bring to my consults, and I do a screen share all the time. When you see them connecting with you, you'll see it's right in their eyes. Like, the whole screen lights up, just like Erin's did, when I said it's so important to say their name when you're transacting with them, especially in conversation. And how you text, always, people just dart it. I'm so conscientious. My team leader said to me, she goes, you always say good morning, no matter if you're having one or not. And some people just say, hey, John, meet me at 123 Main Street. And that's fine. But always, always, always good morning. Always, have a great day. Like, even in a text, like, I'm really conscientious about text because they could be so misunderstood. And how you write them and articulate them is just as important as picking up the phone and having a conversation. 80% of my business is done on text right now.
Wow. And do you give your clients a copy of that itinerary, or?
Yes.
Okay,
yes. So the itinerary is very clear. Yeah. So even if they're not from another country, even if they're from Manhattan, it doesn't matter. What I do, if we're working in WhatsApp, this is what I do. Literally, I let them know, here's the homes that are confirmed. We're starting at this home. I will meet you at this time. And then I break down the time, the address of every other home after that. So then all they have to do is hit the map and it goes to the next home, like right from their screen. So I just put it right from there. I put the time, and then the ones that are not confirmed yet that I'm still waiting. If they're agent accompanied, I write agent accompanied, because they need to know, like, that's not going to be me. Yes, we're going to have to hear another agent do her or his conversation, but that takes time. And I coach them ahead of time. Sorry, guys, even if you don't love it, we still have to go through the whole process. So I really coach them before we get to every home so they know. And then when we go in, if it's just us, like they know that I run them every hour. So it's like 12 to 1, 12:30 to 1:30. I overlap 30 minutes every hour. So in case we run through traffic or they stay in a home longer, we're always on time. But I map that out just like that. And if it's like a, higher end client that is like relocation and we do stop for lunch, like I'll write lunch break at this time. And I tell them if I have to check on a call, if there's an important call, I tell them ahead of time, look, between 1 and 1:30, I have a call. So I just want to let you know ahead of time, be communicative. You have to connect and communicate. Checking your text and being in the biggest feedback I got was from an IBM client that I took on a tour, loved me, but I had no leverage. And the entire car ride, I was on the phone negotiating other deals. And in her survey, she said, Christine is a master, but she needs to be more present with the client. Boy, did I learn that. And that's why I don't check my phone. Like I'll check randomly, but I let them know that I'm doing it. But I'm always present and I don't take phone calls during my tours. Never.
I love that. I love that. One last question as we wrap up. You mentioned that you, especially as we have mega camp coming up, and you know what, whether it's mega camp or not, any event that you would ever go to, right? You mentioned that you always set up, like maybe a breakfast or a lunch. What does that conversation sound like once you show up there? Like, let's say that you were taking DJ out to lunch with somebody you respected. Like, what are some of those questions that you like to ask? A lot of us always say that we would do that. And then like I get asked to lunch and then we sit at lunch and they don't really have a lot of questions. So like, what does it sound like when you take a Chris Heller or a DJ out to lunch?
So actually, Chris was one of the ones I was so scared to call him. I'm like, oh my God, he's Chris Heller, the home seller. He's on the stage, like all that stuff. But that year, I really wanted to break through listings. And I wanted to also understand leverage because he pays his staff like a 20,000 base. And then they end up making $100,000. And I wanted to know, how do you set up your staff for success? Like, what are their activities? And how do they set you up? So I already was very clear what skill he had that I wanted to learn or him share with me. So you really have to walk in the appointment per se coffee with curiosity and knowing, what is their superpower that you want to be like, that you want to ask questions around. So if you had a breakfast with me, like you would want to say, hey, Christine, dig deeper on when you're with the client, like, what are you saying? What are those words you use? Like, and then I would come in with my power words that I use. Like I gave you one with commitment. When you say that about your calendar, like it's a game changer. Like my agents never use appointment anymore. I have another commitment. Whether you're going to get your nails done, it's a commitment. They don't have to know what it is. It's a game changer. Same thing with the power person you want to meet is you want to know, you have your 3 questions. And the most important thing is learn their disc. I know Chris's disc because I know his behavior because I saw him so much. And I had to lower my high I to meet his, non-I. Okay. So you have to know your audience. So you have to actually adapt during your time with them to meet them where they are so they can want to meet you again. So I showed up knowing the personality and 3 questions that I knew was going to move my business forward that I wanted to extract from them. So I did research on them and they had something that I wanted to be and they were already doing it. Just like when I met Chris. Chris, you're a remote leader. I want that. Like, help me on my journey, build that out. And so I was very clear with him what was important to me.
I love that. Wow. What a good, you guys. We could probably be here for like 5 more days with Christine, because I feel like you would have so much great content. Hugely appreciate you. Christine, you are in the Westchester County, New York area.
So Westchester County area, so 35 minutes north of Manhattan. So, we have a pretty large county. So we service Westchester, Putnam, and Dutchess. They're all within 25 minutes of one another. And then we service Fairfields County, Connecticut, like Greenwich and Stamford. You hear Scarsdale, the Scarsdale diet, that's our county right there. But just think about that. We're 35 minutes north of New York City. So we're not in Albany. That would be Leah and the team. We're right down, literally right outside of Manhattan. I'm in Manhattan in 35 minutes on the train.
Yeah, so you're between Manhattan and Connecticut. If people hear
Correct.
any of those words, they should
Yeah.
be sending their referrals to you and your team. And I will, guys, let me give you an update. Last week we had Christina, who was awesome. 2 days ago, her staff sent the stuff that they promised us. So you're going to get an email from me today with all of the content from Christina from last week. This week, you'll get a copy of the recording that we just did with Christine. So in case like you heard her say something, you couldn't write it down fast enough, guys, it'll be in there. And then also her contact information will be in there for you guys. Plug it into your phone. Like I have people that I meet. I have Christine, New York in my phone. Like I don't even have her last name, but I know New York. Like that's all I need in my phone. And then next week, you guys, we have Kelly from Atlanta. And Kelly, the reason we're having Kelly next week, our team does a seller scripting every week, and her agents were scripting with ours, and they had such a great like framework, and they were bragging on Kelly, and I was like, oh my God, we need to have Kelly come and teach us how to like objection handle like she does and her team did, because they blew us out of the water, and we're not horrible. I mean, we're doing pretty good, right? So I thought that was really cool. So we have like, it's like power punch after power punch, you guys, to level up. And kudos to you guys who show up every Thursday and you level up and you knock it out of the park. It's exciting to see, because everything that you do is either a relationship that you're starting, a transaction that you get to close locally, or a referral that you get to send out to somebody else. Like it's always win-win-win every day. Christine, you rock. Thank you so much.
So one last thing is,
yes, tell us.
when I was out in California for a year going back and forth, I started teaching in market centers about connecting, because that's my superpower. So I created a wonderful module called Connect, Converse, and Captivate Clients for Life. And I actually built out a whole webinar that I taught during COVID. So we'll be relaunching that. And again, like those 3 C's, I go deeper into all of them. So then you'll understand the content behind the Captivating the Client for Life. So it's connect.
Yeah, we'd love that info. We would love that. We are team Christine right now.
Yay. And I'm gonna say, so Christine Captivate, Christine Connect.
I love it. Okay, yes, definitely send me that link.
Well, please, like, feel free, text me, find me. I mean, love texting. I'm a big texter, and just send me your contact info. I'll save you guys. And any other questions, feel free. But we're partners. We're ready to rock and roll. I wore my cowboy hat today. Thank you. And really love it. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks for having me. Very grateful.
Bye, Christine. Love ya.